Thank you, Bill. Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to Unity of Orange County. So glad that you're here. So glad that I'm here. Haven't been here for a couple of weeks, but Reverend Allison and Shanice did fabulous jobs when I was gone. But it's good being back and seeing you all. So welcome. We're glad that you're here. We like to begin each Sunday with our vision and our mission statement. So together, our vision is centered in divine love. We joyfully co create a world that works for all. And our mission is to awaken, inspire, and transform lives. So I'd like to thank the people that are making this service possible. We have Bill on piano, and Tom doing our sounds, and John and Waverly streaming, and Christopher is on the camera. And so we're grateful for all of you being here. We are having our town hall meeting today at 11 o'clock on Zoom. And the Zoom number is the same as for the classes. It's 818-8859-3747. We're trying to have one number for all the classes and any town hall meeting, so it makes it easier. You don't have to be running around trying to figure out what numbers for what class. So also we have several classes going on. We have our Wednesday class at 6:30, which is based on the book Living Originally. And then we have our spiritual discussion group on the first and third Sundays at 11 o'clock a.m. And it's based on the quest, our spiritual journey of rediscovery by the Jafolas. And then we have a gratitude circle meeting next Sunday, and then after that, every fourth Sunday of the month. And again, they all have the same Zoom number. And so I hope that you all come today for the town hall meeting. You know, whether you're a member of this church or not, we just appreciate your input. We'd like to tell you how last year went, our hopes for this year, and maybe hear from you some ideas that you may have for us to better serve you, because that's what we're here for. We're here to be of service to you. And if you want to find out what else is going on at the church, you can go to our calendar at unityoforangecounty.org and just click on any of the things on our calendar. And so the daily word for today, which is January 24th, 2021, the word for the day is oneness. I am divine. I am divine. Over the years, I have learned there is a spark of divinity within me and with all people. This divine spark binds us as members of one family and deepens our awareness of God. Today, my understanding of my divine entity expands. My divine nature is so much more than a spark. It is my essence, who I truly am. I realize I don't have to rely on anything outside myself for love, comfort, and guidance. Everything I could ever need from God is already mine and is expressing as me. My realization of oneness extends to all people, whom I now see as fellow divine beings. Freed from all illusion of separation, I am aware of the divine presence everywhere, expressing through everyone. We are divine. And from John 17:21, that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I am in you, may they also be in us. I am divine. So let us now take that thought into our very beings. As I invite you to close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. With each breath, allowing your body to become relaxed, at ease, and present in the moment. We are one. We are one with God. We live and move and have our being in the very presence of God. So everything we need, we already have. The only thing we lack is the awareness of that truth. And so I invite you to take time and go within to the inner sanctuary of the soul, the place of the Most High. And remember, you are never alone, for you are one with the One. And knowing this, we take time in the silence to feel that oneness as we sit basking in the sunlight of the Spirit in the silence. Thank you, Bill. That was beautiful. So today we're kind of talking about a topic which may seem a little large or a little hard to get at least for me, sometimes to get my head around, and it's what is God, or what is the nature of God, and how do we experience God? And I get probably asked that more than any other question as a minister, well, what do you believe God is, or what is God? Or I've had people say to me, I I want to be able to feel God, or I want to be able to know God, and I don't know how to do it. And why does God do bad things to good people, and why do bad things happen to people in the world? It just gets on to a lot of questions. And we're doing this year. We're kind of following the quest, journey of spiritual discovery. And my favorite chapter in this book. I mean, I was so excited that this chapter this week is about what God is. And I remember the first time I read this chapter, I thought to myself, wow, yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. And so they have this wonderful story at the beginning. And this is the story. In a tiny Italian village stood a most beautiful church. For as long as anyone could remember, people had come from near and far just to see the magnificent fresco called the Holy Family, which was painted on one of its walls. But an unfortunate day during World War II, the village was bombed, and part of the famous fresco was reduced to rubble. After the war, the church was rebuilt, with the exception of the one wall. Where the beautiful fresco had once been, there was now only a little more than half of the work left, sitting side by side with a glaring stretch of brand new plaster. The saddened villagers desperately sought to salvage their treasure. Artists and experts from all over the world were brought to the church in hopes that they could restore the beloved painting. One by one they tried, but none succeeded. No one could capture the style and the colors of the original. It seemed as if the scene was gone forever. Then one day, a very old man walked through the church doorway. He said he had heard about the damaged fresco and felt sure that he could restore it. After some time, he managed to persuade the priest to let him try his hand at restoring the pathetic wall. For 2 full days, the man worked in silence. The priest was becoming uneasy, anxious to see some proof of the man's ability. But at the end of the 3rd day, when the priest made his daily inspection of the work, he could hardly believe his eyes. A small portion of the missing fresco had been restored to its original beauty. The man was commissioned to complete the work, which he did in a few months. When he finished, the church bells rang out the great news, and people everywhere streamed into the church. It was the most special day the tiny village had ever known. A great celebration was held to honor the artist. Someone asked him, how was it that he could accomplish what so many others could not? He smiled and said, "It was I who painted that fresco more than 50 years ago. I created it, and now I have restored it." So that is what God is like. God has created everything on this earth. Therefore, everything and anything can be restored only through God, because only things that were created by God can only be restored by God. So this idea, we want to put a picture of God is, we want to say God is, but it really makes more sense to say God is like, because how do you describe what is the undescribable? Everybody has their own opinion. So there's the story of a bunch of people are blindfolded, and they put into a room, and in the room is an elephant. And each person gets to feel a different part of the elephant. And then they ask them what it was that they felt. Well, the person who felt the ear said it was a giant leaf. And the person who felt the trunk said it was a hose. And the person who felt the tail said it was a bullwhip. Well, you see, each one could only perceive a part of that elephant and made a decision based on what he could or she could perceive. And God is kind of that way. We only see glimpses of parts of God. And to understand what God is in seeing all of it, we have to understand the nature of God. So unity believes in 3 natures of God. So we say that God is present everywhere, which means that God is everywhere. But God isn't just everywhere. God is presence itself. God is not omnipresent, which is really an adjective. God is omnipresence. There is nowhere that we can be that God is not. No matter how desperate a situation looks, no matter how sad we may feel, no matter how much pain we may feel, no matter what is going on in our life, God is present there. Because if God isn't present everywhere, isn't the presence itself, then how can we believe or trust in this? When I was younger, I was brought up Jewish, and so we kind of believed in the Michelangelo kind of God, with a long white beard, in the ceiling, floating in the clouds and all of that. And so I could never figure out, if I prayed, how did I know that God would hear my prayers? Because how could God be with me and with this person and that person? And what if God's attention was somewhere else when I was praying? There was no way I was going to get what I was praying for. So it just never made sense to me, this idea that God was in a place. Because as soon as we put God in a place, we limit God. And as soon as we limit God in our life, we limit the possibility of all that can be as a result of our relationship with this God. So God is presence. It doesn't matter where you go. You can go to the far ends of the earth. You can go far away from civilization. You can be in the highest heights or the deepest depths. God is with you because God is everywhere. And not just within you. God is in the rock and the tree and the grass and the ocean and the mountains and the desert. God is. I went to Arizona last week and I was driving across the desert. And there was a time in my life I just didn't understand what people liked about the desert. I was used to rich foliage and blue skies. And the first time I saw the desert, I was blown away because there's so much beauty there. Because how can there be some place where God is not? So God is omnipresent. And we also say that God is all powerful, that God is power. But God isn't power. God isn't omnipotent. God is omnipotence. God is the power that is in everything. We talk about power like we talk about electricity. We go into a room and we just believe when we turn on that switch that the lights are going to go on. We don't understand how electricity works. Thomas Edison didn't really understand it either. We just know that when we do this, something happens. Well, God is this power that we may not understand, but if we turn a switch on, we can tap into that power. So how do we tap into this power that is everywhere? Well, have you ever gotten to the point in your life where you feel like you just can't do everything you have to do? Life is just overwhelming. You have more things on your plate you could possibly do, and you're just despondent, and you get worried, and you get depressed, and how am I going to do all of this? And without realizing that within you is this power that is able to do whatever. Because if God is power that exists everywhere, that power is within you. But if we don't take time to stop and tap into the awareness of that power, we don't have it. So years ago, one time, we had a retreat center, and we were having a retreat coming, and I was the cook and janitor, and along with Christopher, and it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had to make dinner for people at 5 o'clock, and I was like, there's just no way I'm going to get all this done. And then all of a sudden, I had this thought to stop. Instead of rushing around, to stop and pray, and to take a moment in the silence to tap into this power that is within all of us. And what happened was, all of a sudden, I was energized, and I was able to get done everything I could do, not through my own power, but through that power that is within all of us. So we also say that God is, all-knowing. But God is much more than all-knowing. God is omniscience. God is the wisdom and the knowledge itself. There is nothing in this universe that is not part of God's mind. And so when we are faced with a decision or we don't know what to do, We can read a lot of books, we can talk to a lot of people, we can make pros and cons, and all of that is wonderful. But there's something about sitting in the silence and going within, because deep within us is that wisdom, that omniscience, that knowledge that is God is within us. The woman who taught me meditation years ago used to say to me, you go within and tap into that wisdom, that wise being that is within all of us. Because God is more than just knowledge in one area. And that wisdom, just like that power and that presence, is not just something that is outside of us, but it is something that is within us. And so we realize that God is more than all this, and then God is good. So this brings up this question of, if God is good, then why is there evil? Well, that's a whole nother chapter. But I will say this, that God is good, and that means that in everything there is good. And we're going to get more into that in a couple of weeks. But the fact is that that part that is God, we can't describe God. You can't describe God. God is beyond description. So there's a wonderful Taoist story, which, the Tao is just another word for God as far as I'm concerned. So the story goes, once upon a time, a young fish asked an old fish, everyone talks about this thing, ocean. What exactly is it? The older and wiser fish answered, the ocean is that which surrounds you on all sides. The younger fish didn't understand. What do you mean? There's nothing around me. If the ocean surrounds me on all sides, why can I not see it? Of course you cannot, said the old fish patiently. The ocean is both inside you and outside of you. When you move, it moves with you. When you stop, it stops as well. You were born in the ocean and you will die in it. It wraps itself around you, just as your own skin does. But how can I tell if it exists if I can't see it? You must use more than your eyes. You may not be able to see the ocean, but you can definitely feel it. Trust your feelings. They are the key. So these feelings are the key. So I also want to explain the sages, when trying to explain the Tao, I'm going to read this definition. I want you to replace the word God for the word Tao. Whatever the ultimate principle is that underlines reality, we call it the Tao. Whatever the one truth is at the center of all spiritual truths, that is the Tao. Whatever the universal source of consciousness is, we will give it the name Tao. Whatever the force that is ultimately responsible for moving everything in the universe, from galaxies to human beings to subatomic particles, that force is what we call the Tao. So this Tao, this God, is something that we can't understand completely. We want to understand it with our minds, but we only have to feel it. So yesterday I was listening to this woman speak on a Zoom call, and she was amazing. The story was an amazing story, but in the story she talks about this. She met this man. They had a wonderful relationship. The marriage was everything. It was just great. And then he died. He was in the military and he died. And she was just grief-stricken. I mean, she just did not know what to do with this grief. She couldn't understand how, this love that she believed was God's will for her could be taken away so soon. And she just was inconsolable with the grief. And so one day she was sitting there, just sitting in the silence. And then all of a sudden, she felt like she was being wrapped around with this gentle blanket. And what she heard was not words like, it'll be okay, or he's with me, or all is well. All she heard was, I am here. And that is the way we sometimes experience God. In my own spiritual experience, it was the same thing. I felt like I was being wrapped around by something. Nothing that you could see or explain. And I could hear this, I am here. I could feel that presence was there. So we can look in the books, we can go and ask every minister, priest, religious person, spiritual person, what is God? But the only way that we can truly understand what God is like is to feel it. And we can't feel it any other way than in the silence, going within, and totally surrendering ourselves to this ocean, this presence, this power, this wisdom. And then we can begin to get a glimpse of what God is like. And we can begin to realize that we have the ability to tap into that at any time. That we are part of that as that is part of us, like the fish in the ocean. It is within us and around us. It is the same as our skin. So how can we see that which is not seeable? How can we understand that which is understandable? If we can describe God and put it in a box, the God of our understanding is not big enough. It isn't big enough. We have to expand our consciousness regarding God. So I'd like you to take a moment to close your eyes. And I want you to ask yourself this question. What is it I believe about God? Have I tried to put God in some kind of box? To put God in some kind of limiting description? To put God in terms of our humanity? When we think about God, do we put our own stuff in that description? Or do we take time to think about this presence, this power that is so indescribable that we can only feel it? It might be in times of meditation, but it might be in times of looking out at the ocean and beginning to just get a glimpse of what God is like. Or maybe looking at some beautiful flowers and seeing the gift of life that is in those flowers. Or staring at a small seed from a watermelon, a little black seed, and trying to comprehend how that little seed becomes this big fruit with this hard green edge and soft, juicy fruit on the inside with all these other little seeds. How does all that happen? It can only happen through a power and a presence and a knowing that goes beyond anything we human beings can describe. So if your God is limited by your beliefs, don't give up on God. Change the way you think about God. And when you do that, a whole universe will open up to you. And you will get to finally experience a glimpse of what this being, this it is, that is omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, and is always good. And so it is. Amen. thank you, Bill. I could feel God in that music. The one before, I mean, really, that was just wonderful. Thank you so much. Um, so here at Unity, oh, and join us next week because today we talked about what God is. Next week, I'm going to talk about what are we? Who are we in this whole scheme of life? You know, we're just peons floating around doing our own thing or whatever. You know, people ask you, who are you? What are you? What do you say? God. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. So here at Unity, we have 5 basic principles that we believe in, and we like to affirm them each week. And the first one is God is all good and active in everything, everywhere. And I am naturally good because God's divinity is in me and in everyone. And I create my experiences by what I choose to think and what I feel and believe. And through affirmative prayer and meditation, I connect with God and bring out the good in my life. And last, I do and give my best by living the truth that I know I make a difference. And there are lots of ways we make a difference. One way is through the financial gifts you give us, and you can do that by texting us at 77977 and putting Unity of OC Give in the message. You can go on our website under Donate and give it through that. You can do it the old-fashioned way of writing a check. We still accept those. And you can do it if you have our app. So there's a lot of different ways in which you can give. But there are other ways you can give. You know, your participation in this spiritual community is another way of giving. Coming to the town hall meeting today is a way of giving because we not just tithe our money, but we tithe our time and our talents and treasures. So there are lots of ways for us to give. You can also go and instead of going on Amazon to buy all your stuff, which most of us are still doing, you can go to Smile Amazon. And then you can pick Uni of Orange County and we get a small portion of that. So there's a lot of ways that we can give and we hope that you think of us. You can hit like on the YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. So think about how you can give back. It's just wonderful. And so now if you're getting ready to give your gift, I invite you to take your gifts, your treasures in your hand and to affirm together our blessing. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful. And I am grateful. I'm grateful you're all here. I'm grateful to be back with you. And now let us close with our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The presence of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Bless you. Have a great week. Stay safe and see you next Sunday.